You're listening to The First Question with Paul Hendrick, brought to you by Ballistic Sports. Follow Ballistic Sports on Twitter at Ballistic Sports. Since the NHL's inception in 1917, only 348 players have played at least 1,000 games. That includes Matt Stajan, who made 1,003 NHL appearances in a 15-year career. Beloved in his native Toronto, Matt's status as a player and person has extended even further in his adopted home of Calgary. Matt, great to see you and great to talk with you again. And I think this country, as we know, has been built on immigration. Does work ethic and ability to adapt describe family when your grandparents came to Canada, I guess about 6 decades ago?
For sure. I think, that's instilled in me. You got to work for everything in life. I don't think anything comes easy. Nothing should come easy. And I haven't been taught any other way. So I'm a big believer in hard work and achieving what you want to achieve, that you got to put everything into it. And I'm thankful for that being instilled in me at a young age.
For many who don't know, you grew up west of Toronto, Mississauga, Port Credit specifically, and Mineola West. What are some of your fondest memories of growing up in Mini West and eventually playing for the Maple Leafs, obviously, but at least in the early years?
Yeah, I do. It's a great neighborhood. My parents still live there. My sister lives there now with her kids and husband. A lot of my cousins and their families were in that area. So it was home for us growing up. It was a safe neighborhood where we'd go to, this local school. I think Cannoli is probably the closest, go play hockey there, and some street hockey. And Port Credit Arena was a mainstay. It still is for that neighborhood, but that's where it all started, playing there in the house league there every Saturday and Sunday. I always love coming back and even just the little neighborhood and on Lakeshore there, the Port Credit area. It's one of my favorites in the Toronto area, just to come visit, because it's so many great memories for me and my family. And every time I come home to visit, that's where they are. So it's definitely still a big part of who I am, and it always will be.
Well, the Saturday and Sunday mornings in Port Credit, that's famous Port Credit Paperweight hockey. Its longtime convener, Tom Fatsis, should be going into the Hall of Fame as a builder. You look at Grant Marshall, 2 Stanley Cups. Greg Gilbert, 3 Stanley Cups. So my son got to play with Max Domi on the baby Leafs for a couple of years. What were your fond memories of getting to the rink early Saturday? And I guess they might have started you at age 4 or 5, because it does begin early there.
Yeah, just getting there early Saturday morning and playing with my buddies, my cousins. I was actually on the Leafs paperweight team too there, and just kind of getting to know everybody. And Jason Spezza also was at that arena starting out with me, and we got to play together on the All-Star team that they put together, and just so many great memories. So I always remember going to the snack bar after and just getting a hot chocolate and some 5-cent candies. That was always an exciting thing as a 5-year-old. But those are, and it's still going. I know that my friends and my cousins' kids, they put them in hockey there. So that's one thing I miss being out here in Calgary, where I can put my kids into something I know, but we love it here. So we're learning, the great programs they have here and kind of going with it.
Let's move ahead and just think about the draft. You're drafted by the Maple Leafs in Toronto. Was that a given? Because I've talked to scouts and you were on the radar, but not exactly on their radar.
Yeah, I think I was ranked 18th in North America. So if you add in the Europeans, that would probably make me, late first round, early second round. And I never had during my interview process and the scouting combine where we do our pre-draft testing, I had 18 interviews, and I didn't have one with the Maple Leafs. So I didn't think they were a team that was even interested in me. And I hadn't talked to any of their scouts during that season. So I had no clue going to that draft that they were interested. But, to find out and knowing that, I did fall to the late second round, but Toronto said that they had me pretty close. I was rated right after Alexander Steen, who went in the first round. So they got 2 of their higher rated players. And Paul Dennis, who was with the organization, had known me because I'd played with his son growing up. So they had enough background, and it was a dream come true. I think watching Carlo Cogliaco the year before, who's a good friend of mine, and seeing him go through that process, and then the next year to be able to experience it myself, it was pretty special, especially with the draft being in Toronto and all my family and friends being able to be right there to witness it all.
Was number 14 always a priority for you when it came to wearing a jersey?
Yeah, growing up, I always wore 14. I wore 16, like in paperweight when I first started. I loved Ed Olchuk in the 80s because I was watching the Leafs. He was one of their top guys, and I lost my uncle when I was young, and his favorite number was 14, and he was a very athletic guy in Etobicoke, and went to Father Redmond there. And when he passed away, it just became something in his honor where we would wear number 14. So I'd wore 14 after that right through. Except for high school hockey, I wore 18 because someone else had 14 and I was in grade 9. So I couldn't get it. But, throughout my family, all my cousins and everybody that played sports would try and get the number 14. And I went with it, and I loved that number. Obviously, when I came to Calgary, I had to change to 18 because Theo Fleury had worn it here. And it's like wearing 13 in Toronto, you just don't do it. So it worked out. And in Toronto, obviously now the number's retired with Davey Keon, and my dad loved Davey Keon growing up, so it was special to wear that number. But I said right through that I would change my number if they were going to retire it. But so many guys had worn number 14 through the 80s and 90s, and Jonas Hoagland wore it before I wore it, so it wasn't really thinking like it would matter. I just thought it was kind of passed on the tradition, and it was special to wear that number and be able to wear it for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I got to MC the 2007 reunion dinner with all those great champion Leafs. And of course, the next night at Center Ice, they're all honored, and Dave Keon finally comes back. Was there any trepidation with Dave coming onto the ice, you wearing his number, because he was awfully good about it? Yeah, he was very supportive. He never, he always wished me well. And his son, who's very involved and around the ACC a lot, he came up to me pretty early when I started and gave me words of encouragement and supported it. But still, I was always like, if they want to, you hear about, Dave Keon, I never got to watch him. I obviously wasn't born, but you hear how good he was. I was more than willing to give that number up if they want to put in the rafters. And I'm really happy that they have done that, because as you get older, you appreciate the historic, gratitude of what players have done in the past. And I'm glad that things were reconciled with him and the team, and they were able to do that. And not just with him, but with a lot of guys. I like seeing the numbers in the stands now when we go to watch a Maple Leaf home game. Tom Fitzgerald once told me that Al Arbor told him that if you're going to play a long time in the National Hockey League, you've got to take care of both ends of the ice. And this is after Tom had scored 54 goals in 2 years in Springfield of the American Hockey League. Who along the way may have told you, or at least convinced you, that it was going to be important to be a two-way center if you were going to extend your career? Because it obviously worked. Yeah, I think it's just kind of something I learned as I went, but definitely when you first get to the NHL, I always prided myself in being a two-way guy. Even in minor hockey, I loved killing penalties. I loved that side of the game, and I was never the best player growing up, so I tried to be really good at that part of the game. But once you go through junior, you have to put up stats to get on the radar. You have to be one of the best players on your junior team, and you're an offensive guy. And my game really developed in junior that way. So when you come to the NHL and you make your mark, you got to be able to score goals and show that you can do it offensively. But once you establish yourself, you better know how to play defense, because you're not going to get that opportunity if you can't take care of your own end. Especially when I came in, young guys weren't getting put in the top 6, given power play minutes like they are today. You got to work your way up. You're starting on the 4th line, and you can't be you can't be a minus player. You got to make sure you're doing your job. And really early, I got to play with Tom Fitzgerald, my first year a little bit, and just the guys I was surrounded by that year, and making the playoffs and seeing the different roles guys filled. I just kind of took that all in. I never took for granted being in the NHL, like obviously you want to play and you want to be on the power play. Scoring goals is the funnest part, and winning games. But someone's got to do the defensive side. And as I got older, I really took that to heart, and it was important to me. And even in Toronto, when Matt's left, I was putting up a lot more points, and I was offensively being used in a way that was great. But I knew for me to play a long time and be on teams where I could be at my best, that the D side would be so important. And I had to learn that quickly in Calgary, because it didn't go as well in Calgary when I first got here, and you just kind of reinvent yourself. But it's something that was never lost on me. So when I pick someone, I could name a lot of guys that I watched and talked to, but I'd say Paul Maurice is probably the guy who really put me in that role with the Leafs. He put me on a checking line with Alexander Steen and Boyd Devereaux for a bit in 07 or 06, and he used me against the other team's top lines a lot. And from there, I knew I couldn't cheat the game. If you cheat the game, you're going to get roasted and exposed. And so it was instilled in me pretty quickly. And it was a good thing, because I didn't have to be protected anymore as I went on. I was more doing the protecting. And even in my days in Calgary, I was playing on a checking line pretty much until the end, when I was more of a fourth line role player.
The final weeks of junior in Belleville, your career's done. As far as a junior is concerned, it must have been a whirlwind, because from Belleville you go to St. John's, from St. John's to Toronto, all in a matter of weeks, it seemed. What was that like, handling the emotions, the excitement as your career was about to enter a new stage?
You know what? It was so exciting. It was it's hard to put into words. It was such a special week. It was a whirlwind where, I'm in my junior playoffs. We lose in Game 7 in a heartbreaking fashion by a goal at St. Mike's Arena. And 2 days later, I'm signing my first NHL contract and on my way to St. John's to play for the Baby Leafs for their last game of the year. And little did I know, the next day the Leafs called me up to play that game. So it was 3 leagues in span of 5-6 days. With signing my first pro contract. So it was special. I was kind of looking back, that week really helped me the next season, because I know you always believe, you got to believe in yourself no matter what you want to do in life. You got to have that belief. But to be able to get that game under my belt at the end of the year, it just kind of solidifies in your own head that, I can play here next year and fit in. Where if I didn't play that game, I might have been more, I'll go to St. John's and maybe develop a bit, but I had an edge that summer to really try and make that team the next year. And I was able to do that, which helped me, get my foot in the door a lot earlier than anybody expected. And, I'm thankful for that.
Yes, and you score on that game's first goal. And that puts you in a position to succeed. You've got Gary Roberts on one side, Owen Nolan on the other, and maybe at times it's always good to lose a draw. Just reflect back on that first goal.
Yeah, coming to that game, I remember getting to the AC. I was late for the game, so it was I didn't have much time to think about before my first NHL game. I was on a plane in the afternoon, which you never travel game day. But I landed in Toronto at like 5. My sister picked me up at the airport, and I went right to the ACC. And I remember carrying my bag into the ACC at gate 2 there, where a lot of people are already there. So there's fans like, who's this kid coming with his equipment? I had a shaved mohawk from junior. I looked about 14, let alone I was 19, but I looked probably 14. I wheeled into the dressing room, and I was sitting beside Ed Belfour, I remember. And Doug Gilmour was on the team, but he was injured. That's part of the reason I got to play. And he came over right away and said good luck. And he was my idol growing up. And Eddie was great because he didn't play that night. Trevor Kidd was starting, so I remember sitting beside Eddie, and he was very he was his loosey self, joking around with me. And I remember looking at the board and seeing my number up there with Roberts and Owen Nolan, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, where am I? It was just like, am I dreaming? And before you know it, I'm on the ice and playing in my first game. And I had the jitters for sure, like anybody does, but I didn't have the jitters for 2 days before. So it was kind of good. I got thrown right in, and I lost the face-off clean, and Chris Phillips fanned on his pass and was able to go in on a partial break and sneak one through. So it was like it was meant to be, and I'm very thankful for that moment. It was special. One of the great memories of any hockey players, their first goal. So that was obviously a highlight for me.
This current group of Leafs has added a good friend of yours in TJ Brody, Jumbo Joe, Wayne Simmons, and a few others. I don't think I have seen leadership on this team that can compare to the leadership that you had on your team as you walked into that dressing room and you look around. This current group of Leafs certainly needs it to help out JT. What was it like as a 20-year-old to Joe Nieuwendyk and all that went with it, and really leadership by committee, I think, as you got to play with the team full stead 2 years later?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was one of the only young guys on the team. The other rookie on the team was Nathan Parrott, and he was a lot older than I was. So it was myself, and then Nick Antropov was the next youngest, I think, and he had played for 3-4 years already. So I was surrounded by so many leaders and Hall of Famers, and obviously Matt. I learned so much from Matt Sundin, but then you had Brian McCabe. It's just so many guys, but there was just an expectation because everybody was a veteran and knew what to do. So nowadays with all the young guys, I feel like there's more talking that needs to be done. There's more teaching, where I was put in a situation where I came in and I had to learn quickly. No one had to teach me. I better fit in and learn to kind of carry myself in a way that everybody around me is, because they're all leaders and Hall of Famers. And they're there. Anytime I had a question, they were there. And but just from watching these guys, the way they took care of themselves playing into their late 30s and knowing what they'd been through their careers was information that you can't get anywhere else. I can't even speak to it. You just kind of, I always learn to watch and just see what guys are doing. And leadership by example is a huge thing if you watch and take advantage of it. But so I learned a lot, and very fortunate to be in that situation. Got to room with Joe Nieuwendyk the whole season, who was great. He just spending time on the road with guys like him and Gary Roberts and just talking to them. And then just watching Joe battle through back injuries and doing stretches in our hotel room night before games was just like things you don't see as a young kid. So I learned really quickly that, I got to take this information and use it. And I was able to really develop, that side and become a pro really quickly because I was forced to. And I knew that this was information I was getting that a lot of guys don't get in today's game. It's not even there because it's such a young league.
You played your entire career in Canada in just 2 cities. Compare Toronto, Montreal on a Saturday night, maybe in Montreal. That's where I'd love to be. And what it was like with the Edmonton-Calgary rivalry and how exciting that was.
Very similar. I think there's nothing growing up a Leaf fan. A Saturday night in Montreal when you're with the Leafs, playing against the Habs, that's a special environment. And then coming to the Battle of Alberta, it was the same. But, I think you just get the hatred between the two cities when it comes to hockey and the rivalry, and you feel it. Like walking into the buildings, you just felt it. So very similar, but I even Toronto Ottawa was such a rivalry because we had played them in the playoffs, and you just felt those games. So it was special to be part of both those rivalries, and it's hard to compare the two. I think Toronto, Montreal on a Saturday night, though, that's hard to beat. But those are probably two of the best rivalries I think of with the history and what's known in the two cities. It's special.
You've had a chance to play with a couple of unique Maple Leafs. Phil Kessel, in all likelihood, some of the greatest hands I've ever seen, but Kyle Wellwood is the other. Tell me about Welly and that set of hands, and to think, had he adhered to nutrition and everything else, just maybe how much further he went, but he was just a magician out there, wasn't he?
Yeah, his natural talent was, it was as good as I saw, through junior and into the NHL. And his small body frame, he was, one thing that people forget with Welly is he wasn't the best skater, but he was so smart. So on top of his craftiness and his hands, he was just so smart where he could read the play, 2-3 steps ahead, and just make these plays that you don't expect. And I saw it through junior because I got to play with him a bit in junior and then in St. John's. And, so he was a special player that, he kind of, I don't think a lot of people gave him a chance because, size was such a factor, in the early 2000s. But he defied the odds and was really, really talented. And, just his mindset, he was a laid back guy, and that's the way he went about things. And he would be the first to admit that he didn't, do, the nutrition stuff. He just wanted to feel good about himself. But he was a good player. Even now I look back, like I would trust him on the ice, in his prime, against anybody. He can positionally outsmart anybody. And you saw that even later in his career, he was playing, on third lines and he was solid in his D zone. People sometimes overlook that because his positioning was always on.
I've got a Welly story, and a cousin who was a first-year OPP officer pulls Welly over outside of Windsor. It was a minor traffic infraction, but she's apprenticing. He doesn't have his driver's license, but he's able to pull out his hockey card to identify who he is. And she said, listen, I don't want to book you, but I've got to book you because I'm an apprentice and this is the way it is. Fast forward 7 months later, she's visiting Toronto. We go down into the room and I was able to bring her in, and she reintroduced herself to Welly, and he had a big laugh and just said his dad gave him so much hell for not having his driver's license, and he didn't hold any grudges. One of the good guys. Let's just fast forward again. January 2010, Vancouver Canucks. The Leafs jump out to a 3-0 lead. You've got assists on 2 of those goals. You're playing with Pony and Phil. Things are all looking good. Lo and behold, less than 12 hours later, I guess it was Whitey who gave you a call, Ian, and let you know that a bunch of you guys were headed to Calgary on a wet, drizzly, cold Sunday. That was a whirlwind time. What do you recall about all of that? And were you expected, maybe not so expected, all that came about with that trade?
Yeah, I think it was just a crazy situation because we were struggling, and I'd been playing with Phil a lot that year, and then I wasn't playing with him, for a few weeks. And then that night, I was back on Phil's line, and we had a great start. And I remember coming off like third shift of the game, we'd scored 2 goals, and Phil goes stage. He goes, finally got you back as my center. I went and talked to Ronnie and said we need to be reunited because we had a lot of success early in that year. And then the next day everything went down. But looking back, that day was a weird day because we had played the night before in New Jersey and lost in overtime. And usually you have the day off or the morning off before the night game, before the back-to-back game. You would just come to the game at the ACC at Saturday night. But Ron called a morning practice, a morning skate. He didn't give us it off, and all we did was come to the rink and we had a meeting. And in that meeting, he pretty much went around and gave it to a bunch of guys individually, which I have nothing wrong with. But looking back and after the trade, the guys he gave it to were the 6 guys that got traded. So it all made sense, and all the it all kind of, all the dots connected when you look back after that. So and then talking to Berkey years later, because obviously I was with him in Calgary and we've become good friends. He told me that the trade was done actually, the night before, because they just had to wait for the next day because both teams played and they didn't want to rush guys on flight's day of the game. So it was crazy how it happened. But looking back, to say I was upset would be a lie. I was very upset. I was, I thought maybe I'd get traded the deadline. But obviously I grew up a Leaf fan, and you wanted to play there forever if you could, especially try and help with the rebuild. But it didn't fall that way. And, but I was grateful for it. I found my way in Calgary. It took a little bit, but I found my way. We love it here. This is home now. I think I ended up playing in Calgary longer than Toronto, believe it or not. But this is home, and our kids were born here, and we love this community, and I enjoyed every minute of being a Calgary Flame as well. So I was very fortunate. 2 teams, both in Canada, and obviously nothing's smooth sailing. There's always tough times, but I can't be more thankful than what was given to me. And the only thing missing was winning a Stanley Cup, which was everybody's dream. But unfortunately, that's something that never happened.
In Calgary, you got a chance to start off and play with Jerome, and I think that's good. Then eventually, and you mentioned it was a tough start. Brent Sutter's not an easy coach to play for. How did you manage balance, confidence, and all that went with common sense back then to keep your mouth shut, keep your nose to the grindstone proverbially, and just keep moving ahead?
Yeah, it was just kind of, go about your business and do what you control, what you can control. I think you can't overthink everything. It was a tough situation. Looking back, I don't think I was playing as bad as everybody made it out to be. I signed a long-term deal, pretty big deal. And for some reason, when I got traded here, the thinking was I'd be the top line center, which was a great opportunity for me. But it wasn't something like people expected me to put up 60, 70 points a year. And that just wasn't something I ever was going to be. Even, playing in Toronto, I got up to 55 points, 57 points were my career highs. And I was playing on the power play. So when I got here, Brent, something happened with Brent and Daryl. I know for a fact where there was probably a couple trades on the table, and Brent wanted one trade and Daryl wanted the other. And that's how the story goes. And so Brent wasn't in my corner, that's for sure. And Daryl got let go soon after, a year after. And so it was hard. I had to prove myself to Brent all over and work my way out of his doghouse, because I was in there right away. It was like 20 games and I was in there. I had I dislocated my shoulder. It was just a tough start, and Whitey got traded and Jamal Mares is gone. And so the guys I came with, it was just kind of that whole trade. I don't think Brent was in favor of it, and he was the coach, and for whatever reason, it just kind of went that way. So yeah, Brent put me on the 4th line, pretty quickly. And I just embraced it. That's, if you're going to play on the 4th line, I'm going to try and be the best 4th liner. And, I think by the end of Brent's tenure, I had won him back over, and he was playing me back with Jerome. And I was playing really well. And then he moved on, and in came Bob Hartley, and it's a fresh start for everybody. And I was able to take advantage of that because he used me as the 2nd, 3rd line center, playing against the other team's top line every night for 3 seasons. I was against the other team's top line, including playoffs. And so I kind of reestablished myself there, is just kind of to work again for it, because Toronto was more of a rebuild and everybody was getting an opportunity, where in Calgary there was expectation right away, and it just didn't pan out. But and looking at how it all went, I just proud that I was able to, through it all, just be myself and be a good teammate and be a good person, and never take things out on other people. Take that selfishness out, even though you're having the worst day ever. You never have that attitude. Just come have a smiling face and work hard, and that goes a long way. And people remember that. You get given 2nd, 3rd, 4th chances when you're that guy in the dressing room, when you're that teammate. People root for you, and that went a long way right to the end of my career and playing as long as I did. So you learn. It's a life lesson when you go through adversity, but you learn from it.
Well, I'll let you know that Brent didn't pick his spots. I remember a time you were playing for the Leafs, and we're in Calgary, and, studio down that hallway just beside the media room. There's a knock on the door. It's Jerome. Hey, guys, do you mind if I come in and just sit? And I go, can't you? I'm sure, but what about your room? He said, no, I'm injured. And if you're injured, Brent doesn't want you anywhere near the guys who are playing that night. So he literally sat in and watched us do interviews and voiceovers. And I knew somewhere along the line he might be going to the Hall of Fame, and but that's Jerome McGinless. So you're in good company, Matt.
Yeah, Jerome was. I was so like Matt is Matt. Everybody knows Matt Sundin. He's amazing human being, and then to come to Calgary and see Jerome is basically the same. It's just such a nice guy, and And when they play, they just have that fire. They're pretty special people and players. So it was nice to have both those guys as the leaders on the teams I was on, and then my buddy Mark Giordano, who just kind of carried it through in Calgary here and is still doing so.
If you don't mind, if we can reflect back to March of 2014, following the tragic loss of your son Emerson, and the team is up in Edmonton. You were playing with a sense of purpose. It looked like the entire team was playing with a sense of purpose. And for all of us who have been associated with the game, the stars just seemed to align so perfectly for all of you that night, including a rare penalty shot for Matt Stajan.
Yeah, it was obviously it was a very tough time in my life personally, and me and my wife Katie lost our newborn son just after he was born. So I had left the team for a couple weeks. Berkey was great through the whole situation, said, take as much time as you need. He had experienced something like that back in his, when he was a little younger as well. So he was a good guy to lean on. And then the whole city embraced it, and, and the hockey world. And when I came back, it was hard. It was kind of, a weird, feeling, because you have a lot of emotions. But that night, once you get back to just playing the game, it was like an escape for me, just to be on the ice with my teammates, even practicing. You stop thinking, you just think about hockey. And it was just a special night. I remember my parents were in Calgary visiting at the time. Katie's parents were here, and the game was in Edmonton. And for the rest of that season, the Flames and the coaches and Berkey let me kind of fly in at different times so I could stay home and be with Katie to help us get through a tough time with grieving and everything that goes in with it. So they were great with that. But I remember we went to Edmonton, and morning skate happened, and Curtis Glencross, who was on my line that night, said to me in the morning or at pregame lunch, he goes, Stage, he goes, I got a feeling about tonight. He goes, I just have a weird feeling that tonight's going to be a big night for us. And it was Hockey Night in Canada, the second game of the doubleheader. So I don't know how many people out east are watching it. But we got off to a good start, and our line scored 4 goals. Glencross had a hat trick. I was given a penalty shot in the second period, and that's where the special moment happened, where I scored my first goals from coming back and pointed to our lost son. And it's just watching that just brings chills. It's probably, there's a few big moments in my career, but that's for personal reasons, and life reasons. That's the most special moment I had in my career when it comes to me and my wife and our family. And so it was just a special night. And I think a lot of people there that were, we flew home to home that night, and I just remember hugging Katie when we came home, and the emotions that we had. It really it was all just kind of an out of body feeling. It's hard to even explain, but I'm thankful that things played out that way. And to this day, I think there's a reason for it. I believe in signs, and me and my wife believe in signs, and that just doesn't happen by fluke. I think things happen for a reason, and that night definitely was a sign from our little guy that he's there with us.
Game 6 goal versus Vancouver. Again, that grind line's out there. Is that an innate sense of being where you have to be in the very little amount of open ice available to you, and it couldn't have landed perfectly, albeit on its side, the puck? Yeah, so that goal. So that goal we're talking about now is the playoff series clinching goal, and that's the biggest hockey goal I scored in my career. And I think Calgary's had a tough time. Toronto's obviously got their history with success, and we hear about they haven't won a playoff round in a long time. But Calgary's only won, other than the 2004 run, they hadn't won a playoff series, still haven't, other than that one series since they won the Cup in '89. So it was a big goal in the city, and I was so excited just to be back in the playoffs. It was such a grind for me, being through 2 rebuilds, and you're just like, when am I gonna get to the playoffs? It's what you play for, and so I was so excited to be back in the playoffs and have such a big role on our team, where we played against the Sedins all series, and Michael Furlan was
was great, and David Jones, my other lineman. We had a great series, and did our job, and we were able to contribute offensively and in a big way at key times. And that goal was just, we came back from 3-0 down in that game. It was a Saturday night at the Saddle Dome. The place was rocking. The Red Mile was rocking. People were day drinking. It was just going to the rink. You just felt the buzz in the city. And we were down 3-0 early in the game. We grinded back, and it was tied late in the third. And just kind of playing cautiously, being the centerman on my line, and knowing what Ferland and Jones were doing that whole series. They were kind of, running around and being that physical impact that they were. And I was kind of just trying to be the high guy and let them do their thing, and kind of, be the safety valve, because we were playing against the Deans, and that play is just going to the net. And I was in the high slot, and they both drove, and the puck came out to me, and I was lucky to have a second kind of to settle a little bit and let it rip. So it was nice to see that one go in and hear the Saddle Dome explode. That goal gives me chills to this day, and it was just amazing. And a little side note on that is I was not feeling good that day. I remember I had food poisoning in the morning, and I was just drinking Pedialyte all day. So it's just amazing how emotions, when game time comes, you just kind of will through it, and special things seem to happen when you're willing yourself through and battling through things like that.
Couple more questions, Matt. My son and I were in Munich in September of 2018. You're wrapping up your professional career, and the team was on the road in a tournament somewhere, maybe a preseason tournament. I couldn't believe how popular the sport of hockey is, because the German Elite League is one of the world's premier hockey leagues. What was that experience like for you and the family to be over there for 1 year and come very close to winning it all?
Yeah, it was great. Me and Katie always talked about going to Europe after my NHL days were done. And, I could have I had opportunities to go on PTOs and try and extend my career. And, it's always something you never think you're done when you are done, but the league's gotten so young. So we made a decision, let's go to Europe. We talked to our agent, Pat Morris, and we had options to go to Switzerland, to go to the KHL, go to Finland, go to Sweden. And we said, you know what, let's go to Germany. We had friends. John Mitchell was there with his wife, so he was on the team, and there was a fit there. And there's 10 imports, and German hockey, I think everybody talks about Switzerland and Sweden, and yeah, they're great leagues, but German hockey's right there. And you get 10 imports on the team, so it's usually 10 North American guys, so it's an easier train. And we just love the experience. It had its challenges with two young kids under 3-4 years old, which I'm thankful my wife was up for that. But there were challenges. It wasn't easy, but the memories we got from that season, and the way the crowds are, it's like a soccer game in a 7,000 seat arena, just noisy. They're chanting the whole game. It's great. And I'm so glad I got to experience that, because you hear about European hockey, but until you go there and learn how it works and the quality of competition that's over there, it's amazing. And when we were there, we got to play in the Champions League, where you play against other leagues. So we got to play against the Swiss league. We played against teams in the Swiss league. We played against teams in Sweden. So we got to kind of measure against those other teams, and it's all right there. We went to the finals of the Champions League too that season. We lost to Malmo in Sweden in the final, but it's all right there. And German hockey's it's come on strong, as you see with Draisaitl and some of the big names in the NHL now. It's making hockey even bigger in Europe, and I'm so happy that we got to experience it and decided to go there to finish it off.
You've been great, and I want to end it on this. Maple Leaf fans, back in 2001, I got a chance to meet TJ Brodie. As an 11-year-old, he hits all 4 targets, Cabby and Kaber, firing pucks. What can Maple Leaf fans expect from TJ Brodie as he goes from Calgary to Toronto and just reverses the trail you took in the National Hockey League? Yeah,
it's crazy that it's gone that way for him, but he's just a great guy. Him and his wife, and they have a little girl. We're good friends with them, and they're excited, but they're very, laid back people, and they're from Chatham, small town, and keeping themselves. And but one thing about him, he's a great teammate, and he brings it. You know what he's going to do. I think no matter how things are going, always there's ups and downs. You're always going to get the same TJ Brodie. And that's why he's so consistent, and so he's been so good for so many years. So I have nothing but good things to say at him. Obviously, he's my buddy, and we're friends. I wouldn't not admit that, but I think it makes the Leafs decor that much stronger, and they got good things to look for. I don't know about his jersey number selection. I got to give it to him about that, but he's a good one. His smooth skating will be a treat to watch, hopefully, when the fans can go back and watch those games. And I was happy to see him sign there.
Matt, thanks for this.
Yeah, anytime.
You've been listening to The First Question with Paul Hendrick, brought to you by Ballistic Sports. Follow Ballistic Sports on Twitter @Ballistic Sports.